Hey guys, if you've been following along with this engine rebuild for this 1985 Ford F-150 with the 300 inline 6 engine in it, we have got it all torn down. It's still on the engine stand. I just put the crankshaft back in the engine block after I polished up all the journals. And now what we're going to do is we're going to check the clearance between the journals and the bearings to make sure that they're within the acceptable clearance and we have enough space between the journal and the bearings. So we're going to be using this stuff called Plastigage, and I'm going to show you how we do that. So I'm going to show one. I'm not going to do them all on camera, but I'll do one and we'll cut a piece of this and show you how we measure the gap between the journals and the bearings. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3. We're going to do the third one here, and I've already got all these torqued down to torque specs, so we're going to untorque these, or loosen these bolts, and this is with a 3/4 inch socket. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this bearing cap off, and I'm using my torque wrench to take them off just because it's got better leverage, longer handle on it, because my socket adapter for my breaker bar broke and I haven't gotten a new one yet. I'm really hoping the weather stays a little cooler today. Here in Signal Mountain, Tennessee, it's been really hot, and today it's cloudy and rainy. Temperature's down a little bit, so I've got the bolts loosened up. I'm just going to tap that a little bit with the rubber mallet, get that loosened up. All right, as you can see, these are brand new bearings in here, and I already had put some lubricant on that when I put it together, so I'm just going to wipe that down a little bit and wipe this off here a little bit. And now we're going to cut a piece of Plastigage, and what you want to do is you want this Plastigage to go across the entire bearing surface about 1/4 inch off center. So let me just take a second and cut this piece off here. So the Plastigage, it's really thin stuff. It's just a really thin piece of plastic. So we're just gonna snip that off there, and we just want to lay that in there across the bearing. So I cut that a little bit too long, so I'll just snip off the piece there. You want to try to get that straight on there. All right, so I got that on there. I'm just going to lay that down. Got the Plastigage in there, and now we're going to put those bolts back on, and we're going to torque those back down to specs. And for these bolts, the torque spec is between 60 and 70 foot-pounds. So I'm just going to take this all the way up to 70 foot-pounds. All right, we're gonna just go ahead and gradually tighten those down a little bit so we got even tightening. So I'm just gonna keep going back and forth, make sure I've got that set right. Yep, it's set at 70. There we go, and 1 and 2. So one thing is, you don't want to, as you're testing your gap clearance on your bearing journals, you don't want your crankshaft to turn. So you want to keep that in place. If you turn it, it's going to turn with that Plastigage in there. So leave it alone. Don't try to turn it while you got that thing clamped down. So we've got that torqued down. Now it should have squeezed that Plastigage enough so we can now check and see what that gap is. Now I've been working on this engine for several weeks, been doing some travel. Went over to Germany for a week, and then we took the family on a vacation out to the Teton National Park and Yellowstone, and now I'm just getting back to having time to work on this again. I'm really hoping I can get this engine done and get it back, put in the truck yet this weekend. Okay, yeah, let's see, we got the right one here. Right there, that's where the Plastigage got squeezed in. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna measure to make sure that that is within tolerance. And the tolerance on this engine for this crankshaft is supposed to be between 0.002 and 0.003. So we have on here the different measuring areas where we can measure what the width is of that squeezed down Plastigage. So on this one, you can see this top red area, that's 0.002 inches. And then the next white increment down there, that's 0.003. So we just want to lay that over the top, and now I can turn this journal a little bit to see where it's at. So it is right at 0.002 0.002. Yeah, that falls almost exactly on 0.002. So that is within tolerance. It's between 0.002 and 0.003. So we are good with the gap clearance on that particular journal. And we'll go ahead and test the rest of them. I'm not going to do that on film to bore you, but we're going to go ahead and test those right now. And then the next step we're going to do is to put in the camshaft and get ready to install the piston rings and the pistons and get this part of the engine done today. Now, before I put that back together, it's really important that we get that Plastigage off. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a paper towel with a bit of WD-40, and I want to rub all that Plastigage off there. Make sure we get it all off. We don't really want any plastic in our bearings or on the journal when we finish up and put this together.